Hey there, Scott here from SocialNRG Presents, and thanks for joining us once again. Today we've got a wonderfully open and heartfelt episode for you to enjoy, featuring the incomparable Walter Trout, an internationally acclaimed American blues guitarist, singer, and songwriter who's widely touted as one of the top 5 blues guitarists in the world. He's won a vast array of international blues awards, including Song of the Year, Album of the Year, and Artist of the Year, multiple times each. But Walter has also led the life of a hard rockin' musician, to the point where it almost claimed his life were it not for the intervention of his close friend Carlos Santana. And today, Walter joins us from his home in Denmark for a very intimate look back at the successes and challenges of his career, and to bring us up to speed on what he's been working on next. So sit back, relax, and get ready, as SocialNRG now presents you with your Backstage Pass.
Hey, Walter.
How you doing?
Are you there?
Walter, welcome.
Okay, so we got you, buddy. So,
okay, good to be here.
Where do we start? Okay, so you're in Denmark.
I am in Denmark right now. I've been here since July. Kind of escaped the virus in California. I was right in the center of it there in Huntington Beach. And we have a house over here. I'm married to a Danish girl for the last 31 years, and we have 3 sons who were all Danish citizens. And so we kind of escaped here and didn't know how long we were going to be here, but we're still here.
Oh, that's great. So I was going to say, you were born in Ocean City, New Jersey. So how long did you live there?
Well, I lived there year round till I was about 8 years old, and then my parents divorced, and my mom took me up around Philadelphia, but on the Jersey side. But my dad stayed in Ocean City, and my family was there, and I was there every summer, and I still spent a lot of time there. Many summers I worked on the beach there in various configurations.
So I've never been there. So describe what's that place like? When I think of New Jersey, for some reason, I always think of it as being like sort of a just a city sort of area. I don't think of beaches and stuff, which is silly because it's on an island.
Well, the Jersey Shore is a famous area. It's where, Bruce Springsteen comes from, Asbury Park, which is a town that's up the coast a ways. Ocean City is a small island which is just south of Atlantic City. And if you go out on the beach in Ocean City and you look to your left, you can see Atlantic City. But the beautiful thing about Ocean City is, all these seashore towns in Jersey, they all have boardwalks and piers and roller coasters, and they're resort towns with beautiful beaches. But Ocean City, of all the coastal towns in Jersey, Ocean City is a dry town. You can't get a beer. They don't sell alcohol in the 7-Elevens. There's no liquor stores. You can't even get a glass of wine with dinner. So it was, whereas Atlantic City and Wildwood were lots of drinking and carousing going on, Ocean City was really a family resort. It's where families would take their kids. You're not going to run into drunken people up on the boardwalk, And
wow.
It was a beautiful place to grow up. I loved it dearly.
Is it still like that now?
It's still like that now. It was settled. Initially, the island was settled in the 1800s by Methodist missionaries. And when they said, okay, we're going to make a charter for this to become a town, but in the charter, if they ever serve alcohol, the ownership of the land goes back to the church. So it will be a dry town forever. And it's a beautiful place. I love it.
How big is it?
It's not that big. It's probably 8 or 9 miles long, and it's very narrow. If you stand in the middle and you look to the left, you can see the bay. If you look to the right, you can see the ocean. So it's probably about a half mile wide and about 8 miles long.
Population?
That I wouldn't know. When I lived there, it was the mid to late 50s, and in the winter there was hardly anybody. It was a resort town. But in the 70s, when Atlantic City got gambling, everything changed there. Everything changed, really.
Oh, Charles just popped up and said the population there is 11,132.
Okay, well, when I lived there, it was probably about 2,000. But then in the summer, it becomes 100,000,
Right.
It's largely a seaside resort then area, is it?
That's exactly what it is. The only industries there are tourist industries, restaurants, shops, little shopping malls and stuff like that. That's the whole thing. Fishing, boating.
So you would have started school there.
I started school there, yeah. My mother was the librarian at the high school there. Now, I didn't go to high school there because, as I said, when I was 8 years old, my parents divorced and my mom got remarried and took me up towards Philadelphia, which was 60 miles away.
And how was Philadelphia to you, or that area?
It was great. I ended up going to high school there. I moved to a town called Collingswood. First, I moved to a little town, I must mention, named Laurel Springs, which was a little small farming town and was beautiful. But then my mother got the job at Collingswood High School as the high school librarian. So that's where I went to high school, and I had my mother on the faculty, which is not fun, believe me.
Did you get picked on? Did you get picked on because of that, or because your mother was always looking over your shoulder?
The thing would be if I talked back to a teacher, my mother heard about it in the teacher's lounge. If I was late for homeroom or something, my mother heard about it,
We all grew up. Sorry, Scott, what?
What kind of a student were you, Walter?
Not a very good student, I don't think. I mean, I enjoyed school. I was in the top 3%. I took the national test and scored like a 97.5 on the national test. But by the time I was 14, I told my mother I was going to be a blues guitar player, and I didn't care about school. I mean, I decided I was going to be a blues guitar player when I was 14. When I heard Michael Bloomfield, I said, I'm going to be that guy, and I'm still trying.
Okay, I want to go back a bit here. So you moved up to Philadelphia. So you were a decent student, and I was going to say, now you would spend your summers in Ocean City. Yeah. And basically live with your mother the rest of the time. So when you went to Ocean City in the summertime, was it for the whole summer with your dad?
It would be the whole summer. Now, if I really want to get into this, both my parents remarried, and both of the people they remarried were a nightmare.
Oh, really?
So I could escape. My mother married a wonderful man who, unbeknownst to her, had been a prisoner of war of the Japanese in World War II. He had been a Marine. He'd been at Iwo Jima, but he'd been a prisoner of war, and he'd been tortured, and he would drink and get incredibly violent and do stuff like try to kill my brother and I with an axe, and my brother would hold him off with a shotgun, and he would chop down or the bedroom, and my brother and I would jump out of the window and go sleep in the woods and this kind of stuff. And so it was great to go to Ocean City and escape that. But my dad married my stepmother, who hated my guts. And, she had kids of her own. So childhood was, I couldn't wait to get out of it. But
at least in Ocean City, she wasn't boosting that hatred with alcohol.
She was not doing that, but there was there was, I'd just prefer not to really go into all that and spend time on childhood, except to say that by the time I was 14, I knew what I was going to do with my life.
And so you were in high school and you hear Michael Bloomfield.
It was 1960. I was playing the guitar. I started the trumpet at age 6. I was first chair trumpet player all through high school in the orchestra. I was in the state champion drum and bugle corps as a bugle soloist.
Can you still play
the trumpet?
Yeah.
No. I that went away a long time ago. But when I was 10 years old, I started goofing around on the guitar and started getting pretty good at it, playing folk music, playing acoustic music, trying to play Bob Dylan's first couple of albums, right?
So how old were you when you picked up guitar? 12? 10? And so what was your first guitar? Do you remember?
My brother brought home a guitar. He turned me on to a lot of music. One day he said, I know you're into jazz and you want to be a jazz trumpet player, but listen to this. And it was the first Bob Dylan album. And that changed my whole focus. But I got to say, my parents were so hip that I loved music. They encouraged it. For my 10th birthday, I got to spend the afternoon with Duke Ellington.
Whoa.
Yeah, my mother arranged that. And his orchestra. I got a trumpet lesson from the great Cat Anderson. I hung out with Paul Gonzalez and Johnny Hodges and Sam Woodyard and all these great musicians in his orchestra, and sat on a couch with Duke Ellington and talked with him, And
so was your dad and mom, were they musically inclined as well?
Just they love music and they were aficionados of music. My mother took me to see James Brown when I was 13 and Ray Charles, and they were very cool. They knew I loved music and they liked that I loved music, and they never once said to me, it's just a pipe dream. You need to have something to fall back on, or you need to get a real job. So many musicians have these stories where their parents don't support them and their parents say, oh, you can't do that. Not my parents. They always said, we think you can do it. Work hard at it. We're proud of you. We love that you want to play music.
That's cool. With my dad, it was a bit of a twist because just a short story. My dad wanted me to play hockey. He would put me in skating lessons. He would buy equipment, all this sort of stuff. And when I finally picked up guitar from my brother. He bought a guitar from Kmart. He was working there building Kmart when he was a kid and bought a $17 K guitar. Like the strings were like an inch off the neck. But I learned how to play that guitar, and it became my focus. And then my dad every year would say, and I didn't like hockey. I was doing it for my dad, literally, but he didn't know that. And so finally, about 3 years later, my dad says, well, son, you want to play hockey this season? And I went, yeah, okay. And my brother Kenny just jumped on him and said, Dad, don't you realize he hates hockey? All he cares about is music. And he's, don't you watch what's going on? Anyway, so he says, is that true, son? With this hurt look on his face, I was like, well, yeah, I like music. Anyway, so he never bought. I played in a band for 2 years before I owned a guitar.
Wow.
And
were you playing guitar or bass?
I played guitar first. I didn't start playing bass till the 80s, really. Okay. Yeah. And the late 80s. But anyway, to go back, so now I work my way up. My dad, when I want to buy an amp, my dad co-signs a loan for me, but I had to make the payments. If they ever phoned for late payments, I was in trouble. All that stuff. I had to save up all my money to go on the road, all that sort of stuff. Well, it turns out that, of course, my dad was a musician up until my oldest brother and sister were born. Now, when they were born, my mom died when I was 9, but I guess what happened was my mom told my dad he wanted to play weekends to help make money for the family, and he loved to play. Yeah. My mother says, you can't be a father and a musician. You got to quit playing music. She made him quit. So my mother died, but I didn't learn how to play till well after my mom died. When I got back when I got home off the road one time, my brother Jimmy pulled me aside. He says, "Your dad's favorite, you know." I said, "What are you talking about?" He says, "Well, after all these years, you proved Mom wrong. You're a dad and a father, and you're a musician, and you're on the road, and you're playing." And he said, "He's totally proud of you." I was like, so he wouldn't support me, but I worked so hard at it, and you know, ended up becoming proud of me at the end. You know.
Well, you proved yourself.
I guess so. I guess so. I would have never been a hockey player. I had too soft a heart, man. Remember one time I could skate backwards really good because I had figure skating lessons, and there was this big kid coming towards me. I was playing defense, and he made the big mistake. He looked down at the puck, so I just stopped skating. He ran into me, bang, knocks himself out on the ice. So everybody goes over, and my dad comes to the side of the rink to say, "Hey, good play, son." And I was crying. I didn't want to hurt the kid. So I wasn't meant to be a hockey player.
Yeah, I was not good at sports either. I just didn't care. I have to say, my mother, who was on the faculty at that high school, said to me, "Walter, you don't want to go to that high school." She goes, "That school is all about athletics and you're an artist." She told me that,
Wow.
when I was a kid. And I said, "Yeah, but all my friends are going there,
Isn't that incredible? That's so great that you had that kind of support. That is a rarity, because it's true. Most musicians, it's always like, well, you better have something to fall back on. At the very least, that's what they'll say,
No, she would say, "I hear you playing in your room. And you know what? I think you can do it. I really do. Now you work hard." And then she would say this, I'll never forget. She'd say, "But Walter, you're basing your whole life on your fingers, so take care of them." And if it was dinner time and I started to slice a carrot, she'd put down that knife. And,
wow.
And now I understand, because in July of 2019, I broke my baby finger, and now for the rest of my life, I'm playing guitar with 3 fingers.
You can't use your baby finger anymore?
Times in 3 different places, and now it's stuck. I can't bend it,
Oh,
but it's
God.
okay. I did my whole last album with 3 fingers, and I toured for all of 2019 pretty much playing with 3 fingers.
Well, I remember you talking about the fact that you'd broken your finger, but I didn't realize it didn't come back.
No, it hasn't come back, and it's not gonna. It won't bend. I broke it in 3 different places, 3 different times. So that was the higher power telling me, "I'm going to test you, see what you can do with 3 fingers."
Wow, that's insane.
So my mom was right. I look back when I'm sitting here playing, I go, "Yeah, Mom, you were right."
Well, you remember Mark, the drummer that we played with in Toronto?
Oh, great drummer.
Yeah, well, Mark and I have a band, and the guitar player, he wasn't part of that. He's normally is a part of the Randy thing, but at that time, I think Randy decided to bring Tal instead of Brent. But anyway, But Brent was out working in his yard one day trimming a hedge, and you can see my baby finger. He put the hedge trimmer this way down his finger, like right down the center. Oh. They almost amputated it, and he's still trying to get it back. It's like he has to use really light gauge strings, and he babies this finger a lot, and it's a real pain.
Sure.
But I was going to say, so let's get back. So you're playing blues guitar when you're 14, so that's roughly what, grade 10ish, and
1965. Grade 9th grade.
And
when I devoted myself to it was 9th grade.
Okay. And you're still in the Philadelphia area at that point.
Yeah, I'm in the Jersey side across the river.
Okay.
Philly.
I played July 4th to the Jersey side. I remember that now. Now that you say that, there was a stage set up and we could see New Jersey across the water while we were playing this July 4th thing.
Oh, you were right along the river in Philly.
Yeah.
Yeah, I played that gig years ago with John Mayall, looking across the river.
I can't wait to get into that part of your career, but I got to get from high school. So your first bands, what kind of stuff were you doing? Were you playing blues right from the beginning?
I have to say, and I'm going to bring this fellow up. I graduated from the 8th grade in this little farm town, Laurel Springs, and then we moved to Collingswood, where my mother got the job in the high school, and I started there as a freshman. And one of the first people I met, I joined the orchestra and the marching band and the choir. If I was in orchestra, marching band, and choir, I didn't have to go to gym class. It got me out of playing football and running track and all that bullshit, right?
I get it.
So I met a fellow named Jack Jeckett, and this was meeting a young Paul McCartney. Jack plays every instrument. He writes great music. He sings great. He's motivated. He was like incredibly comfortable in his own skin, had the peer pressure in high school. It rolled off him like water off a duck's back. He was just the coolest guy, and he was this driven artist. And he and I became close friends. We still are. And we started a band together. And we had a band, and we wrote songs together that we played around. And then the band started getting a lot of work. And after high school, he went to music college outside Philadelphia, and he got a bunch of music majors, and he started a band, and I was the lead player. And we had a big horn line, and we did Chicago and Blood, Sweat, and Tears, and we did Stax Vault stuff and Motown stuff. And we were a club band playing in bars for people to dance to. And we worked all the time because we were really good, and we could do, all the Chicago stuff. And we would do things like take a Rolling Stones song and turn it into a horn line tune, and once in a while, they'd say, okay, sing something, Walter, and I'd do a Muddy Waters song or something like that, right? But we worked all the time, and we were a very successful club band, and that was great.
Where would you tour in those days?
That we were just playing the Jersey seashore. There is an entire circuit of clubs on the whole East Coast, really, up and down from New York State down to Delaware and Maryland. And a lot of the clubs, especially in the Atlantic City area, would have two stages, a stage on either side of the room. There'd be two bands. One band would play 45 minutes, then you stop, and as soon as you stop, the band on the other side of the room starts. And we would do shows with a band called Steel Mill, which was Bruce Springsteen, and they were from right up the road from where we were. We were competing bar bands, and we were all doing cover music.
Right.
They were doing cover songs just like we were. You had to do it to work.
Of course. Yeah.
And I remember Bruce Springsteen at that point was the lead player, and he's not a lead player.
No.
And I thought I was the hot shit guitar player, and we'd be in the parking lot after a gig, and I'd be telling him, man, you got to practice your guitar, man. He'd say, well, I'm writing songs, and I remember being all drunk and stoned and saying, well, I hope your songs are good because you're not going anywhere playing guitar. Well, he showed me, But we were all 17, we're 17 years old, and we're playing in bar bands, and we're having fun. We're getting stoned, and we're chasing girls, and
Yeah. Well, that was going to be my question. Is that obviously you had a bit of a rapport with him, even though he was a competing musician.
Well, yeah. I mean, we were doing the same circuit, and it was a lot of fun. There were clubs there was a club in Longport, New Jersey called the Dunes Till Dawn, and you start at 2 a.m. and you play till 6 or 7 a.m. And that bar looked like the bar from the Star Wars bar scene, because when the regular clubs would close at 2 a.m., all these people would stumble into the Dunes Till Dawn, and it was the real hardcores. And that could be a rough gig, really? Starting at 2 a.m. and playing till sunrise,
Wow.
A
So
lot
that's
lot
like a
of
speakeasy.
on.
Sorry, I interrupted.
I was just going to say there were a lot of chemicals
Yeah.
being passed around,
Well, that would be like playing a speakeasy. If it's sort of it's all after hours stuff.
Yeah, but
Yeah.
it was legal, I mean, it was legal. It's not there anymore, of course,
Yeah, amazing. So you're doing that. So now, now you moved from that area to California,
Well,
did you
let me
not?
tell you,
What was, or did you go to England or?
no, I even sent you a photo of my work badge from when I was a drug counselor at Thomas Jefferson University in Philadelphia. I
Wow.
became a drug counselor and a group therapist at a drug program run by the National Institute for Mental Health, and I did that for about a year and a half. And
How old were you then?
I wanted to play guitar, but I was doing this for money.
And how old were you?
I was 21, and they trained me, and that's a whole other. It was an experimental program to try to rehabilitate heroin addicts, not only through group therapy, occupational therapy, one-on-one therapy, but through the arts. It was an experiment. They had a film production studio, they had a painting, they had writing, they had drama, and they had music. And I ran the music department. And while I was doing that, they trained me to run group therapy sessions.
Wow.
And, I did that for a year and a half. I was still playing on the weekends in the band. And I did that and sort of basically had a nervous breakdown at the end of it and hopped in my car and drove to California just to finally say, I'm just going to play the guitar.
Because you were probably overwhelmed with everything.
Well, the story of that was people came in out of prison. There were like, say, 30 spots. So you came in out of prison. It was an outpatient clinic. You came in every day from 8 in the morning till 3, like school. If you were there for 1 year with clean urine tests, you were free. You didn't have to go back to prison. When you came in there, you chose a major like college. You chose drama. You chose film production. You chose whatever. If you chose music, I was your counselor. You had to have clean urine tests for 6 months. If you had clean urine tests for 6 months, then the occupational therapist would get you an after-school job. Well, there was a kid who had a 15-year-old girlfriend. He got pregnant, and he said to me, I need a job. I have to take care of my girl. I went to the people that ran the place, who were psychiatrists, very well-known, nationally known shrinks at the time, and said, you have to bend the rules. This kid needs a job. And they said, we won't bend the rules for him. They wouldn't let him get a job. He needed money. So he did the only thing he could do to make money, and he started dealing at the program. I found out he was dealing, and I had to be the one to tell him, I'm sending you back to prison. And so
Wow.
I told him I was going to send him back to prison, and he tried to kill me, and then he hung himself. And that's when I said, I just want to play the guitar. It's a hard story for me.
Oh my God, that's terrible.
And, so I just went immediately, and I said, I'm through, and I hopped in my VW and I drove to California.
Where did you land in California?
I had a friend who lived in Costa Mesa, which is south of Los Angeles. I came to his place, and I started going around to clubs and saying, hey, I play guitar. Can I sit in? And I went to a club in Corona del Mar about a week after I got there. I went in, and they had a great country band. It turned out these were guys who played with Dolly Parton, but nobody could sing. And I went up and I said, I know every song by Merle Haggard. I know every song by Hank Williams. I know every song by Buck Owens. Can I sing a song with you? And I got up and I think I sang I Fall to Pieces by Patsy Cline. And I got the gig. I was a stand-up lead singer in a country western band. I didn't even play guitar.
So they didn't even realize how great a guitar player you were.
Well, I said to them, I play guitar. Can I play? And they said, no, we have a guitar player. And they did. And he was very good. And after I did 2 weeks with them, I got my money and I went out and bought a Stratocaster, which is the Stratocaster that's on the cover of all my albums, that one that's all beat up now. And I went in and said, look, I just bought this. Can I try at least play a song? And I played it. They said, you didn't tell us you could play like that. And suddenly I became the lead player that night.
Well, that's great.
Better because I said, hey, after we do this Hank Williams, how about we do a Chuck Berry? We do a Chuck Berry. And I turned him into a rock and roll band and we got fired. I said, I hired a country band and now you're playing Little Richard songs, you know.
That's great. So how long? So that lasted for not that long. Where'd you go from there?
I started a band with the bass player. He and I started a couple of bands together. We did well, and we ended up becoming the house band at there was a brand new club in Costa Mesa that was being built by a member of the Harrah family, the Harrah's Casinos. And we became the house band there, and we did 5 nights a week, 5 hours a night for a 2-year run we did in that place. Came out of that pretty mentally ill, to be honest.
Explain.
Well, it was every night, and there was lots of chemicals going around. Let's say it was 1977 through 79, but then my life changed, and this was the big one.
Okay.
A friend of mine said, Walter, I know you like to play the blues, and you're not playing the blues with the band you're in. We had 5 lead singers, so we were doing the Eagles. We were doing the current top 40, the Outlaws, Marshall Tucker, kind of country rock stuff, which was big at that point, right?
Right.
And he said, I know you want to play the blues. And I was up on the Redondo Beach Pier, and there's a little club. And every Sunday afternoon, there's these older black guys, and they just play the blues. And let's go up there, and maybe you can sit in. And we drove up there, and these guys were great. And I went up and said, can I sit in? And they're like, well, we don't know, you know. And I said, look, if you let me get up and play one song, I'll buy a round of drinks for everybody, you know, the whole band. They said, okay, you can play one song. I played a song. They said, play another one. I played another one. They said, stay up for the set. On the break, they said, you want to join the band? And it happened to be John Lee Hooker's backup band.
Wow.
And that's when my life changed.
Wow. No kidding. Wow. Well, there was now, so that would have been around the same time. Now, how did you end up being a sideman for Jesse Ed Davis? Because Jesse Ed Davis, that would have been right around the time that he was working with John Lennon and all those people?
Yes, that was earlier. That was actually 1975, and that was after the country band and between the club band. Now, there's a dark side to what happened with Jesse, which I'll get into with as much as we want to. But I had a girlfriend, a beautiful blonde girlfriend in LA after I left the country band that I turned into a rock and roll band. And I was living at her house, and we went to a party in Hollywood, and there was Jesse Ed Davis. And somebody said, he's looking for a keyboard player or a rhythm player. And I went over and said, hi, Jesse, I'm a huge fan of yours. I hear you're looking for a rhythm player for your band. And he said, who have you played with? I said, well, I played with a club band, a good club band in Jersey, and I played with a club band down in Corona Del Mar. And he said, the bass player there, he just did a whole album with Rod Stewart. He goes, the drummer over there plays with Van Morrison. I just did an album with Bob Dylan. I just did the lead on Atlantic Crossing by Rod Stewart. You think you can play with us? And I said, I don't know. You have nothing to lose. And I'm going to be serious here. I said, if you let me audition, I'll bring you guys some cocaine. And he said, well, okay, then come and audition. So I went and auditioned, and I played 2 songs, and he looked at the band and he said, this guy can play and he has drugs. You're in the band.
Oh, God.
So I played with him for 2 years, but we got very bogged down in heroin addiction. So I went from being a drug counselor to being a heroin addict for 2 years with Jesse. I went on a methadone clinic and got clean. I took him to the methadone clinic, but it didn't work. And I ended up leaving. That's when I was living in Los Angeles proper with that girl. And I was with Jesse for 2 years, but the drugs got to where I knew I had to get out of there. And I told my girlfriend, I have a gig in Huntington Beach. And I drove down there with my super reverb amp, my Stratocaster, and I never went back. I left her a guitar. I left her my mandolin, my trumpet, all my clothes. I never went back. And that's when I got into that. I got into that bar band I told you, or we did the 5 nights a week for the 2 years. You know, I just wanted to play, and so
that's a remarkable story. So
well,
so now you're with John Lee Hooker's band.
That's when I got with John Lee Hooker. Now the bass player with Jesse, you might know Bob Glaub, Glaub.
I know the name.
He played with The Pretender by Jackson Browne. He plays with Stevie Nicks. I mean, he's incredible. You know, he was a great band. The drummer was Gary Malaber, who's on Moondance by Van Morrison. Me and Jesse on guitars. We were a great band, and we had a great future, but the drugs destroyed it. Really.
Yeah, the drugs destroyed so many careers. Good Lord. And not to mention, well, not just destroying careers, like people dying.
Well, Jesse OD'd, you know, he got clean for a while. And then I believe it was 1988, he OD'd and died.
Yeah.
But I treasure my time with him, and he was a dear friend. And I can say that I learned so much on the guitar from that guy.
No, was he
every night?
Was he native descent?
Yes, he was. Yeah, he was.
Yeah, it's amazing because you don't really hear that many native musicians in like that sort of realm of music. I mean, there's what were they called? Redbone were a native band that had pop music.
I played with those guys too, with those members, with Tony Bellamy and Butch Rillera. I played in the Anaheim Sheraton House Band for a while. Also, Robbie Robertson from the band grew up on an Indian reservation. Link Ray.
Yeah. Robbie. He was Northern Ontario Reservation, I believe.
Yeah. Now, Jesse. My time with him was incredibly exciting because suddenly I was playing with these guys. I mean, he would say, you know, hey, could you drive me to the airport tomorrow? I'm going off to make a record with George Harrison or something. And I'd say, yeah, sure. You know, in the Concert for Bangladesh, that film, the opening scene of that film is Jesse lighting George Harrison's cigarette. And then they played together. Jesse was the top. He was the cream of the crop when I was with him. And it was very, very exciting to be around that, coming out of, a club band in New Jersey, basically, you know.
No kidding. Like I mean, that stuff is like legendary. I mean, the concert for Bangladesh alone, that was the first fundraiser ever done.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
But I got, I got to say, it really went to my head. I started thinking, I'm a rock star. I'm 23 years old and I'm with all these big time rock stars, and we're playing all over LA. We're playing Gazzarri's, and we're playing the Sunset Strip, and we're driving around LA, and it really went to my head for a while, and I got pretty screwed up,
In what way? Screwed up.
But doped up.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah.
Yeah.
So what just I don't want to go too much into this yet. Well, I think we should talk about it. But were you a druggie, an alcohol type of guy, or were you both? Or
I was an everything type of guy.
okay.
Although I will tell you, after I went to that methadone clinic and took Jesse, and they weaned me off of the heroin, I never, ever went back to that. But then I had 10 more years of doing cocaine and drinking.
Right.
And then in 1987, when I was with John Mayall, Carlos Santana did a 3-day intervention on me, and I stopped everything, and I have been a teetotaler now for 33 years.
So okay, John Mayall. Let's get into you working with John Mayall. So you were with him. You started in '84.
Okay, let me go back now. When I say that jam on the pier with those older black guys changed my life, this is the reason why. I got into that band. Not only were they John Lee Hooker's backup band, but anytime a blues musician would come to LA, this was the band they would hire to back them up. So with these guys, I played with Lowell Folsom and Pee Wee Creighton and Eddie Cleanhead Vincent and Big Mama Thornton and Bo Diddley. And I can't even remember them all. Joe Tex, the soul singer. All these people would hire that band. And, I was the only vanilla fella in the band and the only guy like under 50 years old. And I was, 23. And it was an incredible education. I wanted to learn the blues. I was with the real dudes then,
No kidding.
But then while I was playing with those guys, I was heard by Canned Heat.
Okay.
Canned Heat, they have a close relationship with John Lee Hooker. And they heard me playing and they said, hey, we need a guitar player. I joined them and was with them for 4.5 years. And then John Mayall put the original Blues Breakers back together with Mick Taylor and John McVie and Colin Allen. Wow. And Canned Heat did some shows opening. And John and I hit it off and we became friends. And he said, well, what's Canned Heat doing the next few months? And I said, nothing. And he said, well, I'd like to hear you play with Mick Taylor. Why don't you come out on the road with us? So there I was at 23 or 24, and I was suddenly playing with, quote, the original Blues Breakers, playing with Mick Taylor and John McVie and John Mayall. And I toured with them.
Where did you tour?
We did California, basically up and down the coast. We did San Francisco and Oakland and Berkeley and San Diego and Fresno and Phoenix. I think we made it as far maybe as Atlanta. I got to say a lot of it's a blur because I was still drinking, you know.
Yeah.
But then John said, hey, I'm going to start a Los Angeles Blues Breakers. I would like you to play lead guitar. And he hired me and Coco Montoya. Mm-hmm. And so that's when Mick Taylor and John McVie went their own way. And then I was still with John Mayall, and I was with him till 89 when I left and went solo. But while I was with John is when I had my run-in with Carlos Santana, who convinced me I needed to sober up.
So you were touring with Carlos, or you did a date together? How did it work?
We were in with Mayall, back before the Iron Curtains came down and before the Soviet Union fell, we used to do State Department tours because being, in quotes, a blues band, we were considered culture by the Russians. And so we could go and we could tour Russia and Latvia and East Germany and all these, Behind the Iron Curtain. We made an album called Behind the Iron Curtain that we recorded in Hungary in 85. But in 87, we were in East Berlin and we were in a hotel for a week with Santana and his band. He had Buddy Miles fronting the band, singing with him.
Wow.
And who do you have? I'm trying to remember he had an amazing bass player. It was maybe like Alfonso Johnson or one of those guys. But anyway, Carlos, was at one of the gigs. We were in the same hotel for a week, both bands. And he came to me after the gig. I was in the bar at the hotel drinking, and he came up and he went like, "Man, what's with you, man?" And I was like, "Wow, I'm meeting Carlos Santana," and he's like giving me some shit. Like, "What do you mean?" And I'll never forget. He said, "You're in a famous band." He said, "There's 100,000 guitar players would give anything to play lead guitar in John Mayall's band and stand in the same spot as Eric Clapton and Mick Taylor and Peter Green. And you're there and you've been given a gift of music." And he said, "But you're so drunk on the stage, you're doing this to who gave you the gift." And he raised his hand and he flipped the bird up at the sky. And he said, "That's what you're doing to who gave you the gift." And he handed me a book and he said, "Go to your room, read this book, and then let's talk." And I went to my room, I read the book. I came down, I spent the next 2 days with Carlos, and we had long talks about life and about art and about all sorts of stuff. The book is called Discover Your Possibilities, and it's by the Reverend Robert Schuller.
Okay.
And Carlos said, "Look, Walter, there's religion in here and there's psychology. If you want to, you can skip the religion, but you need to dig the psychology." And what the point of the book is this. This is basically what it says. Everyone has a passion or they have a gift. They need to figure out what their gift is, what they're good at, what they're passionate about. And they need to take that seriously and they need to nurture it and develop it and respect it and love it. I'm going to lose it here. And you need to be the best you can be. And by taking it seriously and then sharing it with the world, you are making the world a little bit better place. And that was the point of the book. Wow. And I went to John Mayall and I said, "You will never see me high again." And I have not been high. That was July the 9th, 1987.
So it wasn't even a 12-step program. It was just you all of a sudden coming to the realization that where you were in life was you were destroying the very thing you worked so hard to achieve.
Yeah, I wasn't taking it seriously. It had become about the party. It had become about like, let's party up and be wild and crazy and live fast and die young and be the tormented blues man, and all that. And John, I have to say, was a big help too, because me and Mr. Mayall, he was sober and we had a lot of talks, and he would tell me, "Walter, you can play this music and you don't have to be tormented and you don't have to be this wounded animal. You can be an adjusted person and you could have a family and you can have a good life and still play this music and play it with passion and play it with feeling and play it with commitment. You don't have to be all screwed up. You don't have to be this crazy person, Yeah.
Don't live the myth."
I have to say, when I was not on tour with Mayall, I had the house band at a little bar in Huntington Beach, a bar called Perks. It's right across the street from the pier. And I played there every night when I was home. And for years, my drummer there was Richie Hayward from Little Feat.
Wow.
And he was sober. So I had these sober people that I loved kind of putting pressure on me to get sober, but Carlos was the catalyst, you know.
Yeah, sadly, Richie just passed away a little while back.
Yeah.
Yeah. He was actually up in Vancouver. He was, I don't know if he was doing treatments up in Vancouver, but he was making a lot of appearances with people, and you know, hanging out in his last days.
Yeah, he had liver cancer, but he didn't manage to get a transplant, you know.
Yeah. So, okay, so man, that's heavy stuff. So so Carlos Santana, so he gives you this book, and then you guys chatted. John Mayall's in your camp. He's helping you out. Now, did Richie, just out of interest, did Richie quit drinking because of liver problems, or was it just he had quit drinking and liver problems came later?
He quit drinking long before that.
Okay.
When he was playing with me, he was not drinking or getting high, but I certainly was, until the Carlos thing, you know.
And so, how old were you when this happened with the Carlos thing? When you flipped?
7, I was 36.
Wow.
And then I stayed with John for almost 2 more years, sober. And on my birthday, when I was turning 38, we were in a symphony orchestra hall in Gothenburg, Sweden, and I was up on stage playing with John. And I kept thinking to myself, if I want to have a solo career and I want to have a band and I want to write songs and I want to give the musical direction and I want to be Walter Trout, not just the sideman, but I want to present my own version, my own vision of the music, I'm going to have to quit. I'm 38 and it's a late time to start. And then I thought, now John's one of my best friends. He is like a father to me, and he still is. So I know I could stay with him forever. I can be in this band as long as I want to be, but I want to do more. I want to give more. You know, I was writing songs at the time when I was home in that fronting that band in that little bar. I was doing all my own songs. I was playing 5 hours a night of Walter Trout music. And I not only had Richie Hayward, people came in there. Mick Taylor came in there and played. Garth Hudson from the band. I can't remember them all that would come in there and sit in. It was like the place. If you were sort of in LA, you would come down south and sit in with my band in this bar, you know. And so I went to John's room after the gig on my birthday, and I said, John, I love you, but I'm going to have to quit. And he said, no, and we both cried. And he said, you're just emotional because it's your birthday. And I said, no, I am emotional, but I have to leave. And I finished that tour and went solo. And
so this is in Sweden, you said, when you made that?
That was in Gothenburg, Sweden. Yeah.
Yeah. So the tour finished in Europe. Did you go back to California to start, or did you just stay out there?
No, okay. I went back to California. Yeah.
And this would have been right around 88?
This was 89.
89. Because you and Marie met in 1990, but she was in Denmark when you met her?
She was in Denmark, yeah. I met her.
So you went back to California and somehow made your way back to Scandinavia?
Well, on the tour, on the tour where I left John, we had done a gig in Denmark, and John had been sick. And he had told the promoter, I'm too sick to do the gig. I need to cancel it. And the promoter said, I'll tell you what, John, if you cancel it, I lose a lot of money. What I would like to do is, how about if the band goes on without you, And at the end of the night, I say, okay, anybody want their money back? And he said, that way I won't. John said, okay. So Coco Montoya and I fronted the Blues Breakers that night, and we played for 3 hours and did all sorts of music we never do. I was doing Cream songs and Hendrix songs and Jackson Browne songs and all kinds of stuff. We walked off the stage, and a guy came up and said, I'm from Elektra Denmark, a record label. I'd like to offer you a record deal. And the promoter was standing there, John's promoter, and he said, I'll tell you what, Walter, if you do that record deal, I'll book 4. So that was put in my lap. So when I was considering quitting John, I knew if I wanted to do that, I had to quit John.
Yeah,
so
of course.
My birthday, I was up on stage going, I can make a record.
Yeah.
So that was in April, or I quit on March 6th. I finished the tour middle of April, and by June I was back in Scandinavia making my first album. You know,
holy smokes! So how'd you meet Marie?
I came to Copenhagen in 1990 to make my second album, and while I was over here to make my second album, I had a couple of gigs, and one was headlining a music festival in Denmark in a town called Holstebro. And I was up there playing, and there was 2,000 or 3,000 people in this hall, and I could see this blonde in the back of the room. It was like there was a light shining on her, and across the room, our eyes were like lightning bolts, and she started moving toward the stage. It's very weird, Mick. She started moving toward the stage, and the crowd parted like the Red Sea, and she came up in front of the stage, and we went like this, and I said, I got to meet you, and I fell over the mic, and we went out and we walked around this town, little Danish town that's 1,000 years old, at 2 or 3 a.m. And 45 minutes into it, I said to her, you're going to move to America. We're going to get married. We're going to have children, and we're going to get old together. And she was like, what? And I said, and you have no say in this because this is meant to be. And a week later, she said, yep, okay, here I come.
Wow. Well, she's a lovely person.
3 kids and 31 years ago, you know.
Yeah, Marie's a lovely person, and you guys are a great couple together. It's pretty obvious.
Yeah, she certainly has saved my life in a myriad of ways.
Yeah. Know? Well, I mean, she runs your career. You know,
yeah,
that's
she managed my career for 28 years, you know.
Yeah, it's nice to keep it all in house. At least you know what's going on all the time.
You know, the Colonel got 50% of Elvis. I always say my manager gets 100%, you know.
Oh, that's fantastic. So you did your first albums. So when you're because your album's like, what is it? The 2019 album went to #1 in the blues charts and Billboard.
I've had a couple that have been at #1, and my last 10 albums have all debuted in the top 5.
Wow!
Yeah.
So you've been really successful. Now, are you still with Elektra, or how? What? No,
I only did one record with them. Then I went to Pro Vogue. Then I went with Silvertone, which was Mayall and Buddy Guy's label. I did one record for them. Then I went back to Pro Vogue for 2 albums. Then I went with Roof Records in Germany for about 8 albums. And I've been back with Pro Vogue now for the last 5 or 6 albums. I've done 29 now.
Wow. That's a legacy. I was going to say, so here's a question. This is way off the beaten path. Do you find, like, what's your amp of choice these days?
I use Mesa Boogie, and I've been with Mesa Boogie since I was with John Mayall.
Okay, so do you notice a difference? The reason I ask, sorry to interrupt, but the reason I ask, do you notice a difference with the AC power in North America and the AC power in Europe with the way an amp delivers?
Yes, I do, but I have to say that because I've been touring Europe, I mean, I toured Europe for 8 years before I ever got a record out in America, right?
Mhm.
So I have a full set of backline over here that I leave here. And one of the things I have is a transformer.
Oh, okay.
And we set the transformer, the amps, I guess American amps are supposed to be 110. We set the transformer at 117 and it pushes the amp and it sounds awesome, you
Right.
know. Yeah.
Well, speakers, yeah, speakers sound just the best they're going to sound just before they blow up. So,
Yeah,
so
exactly.
amplifiers are much the same way, especially valves. If they're just smoking,
Yeah,
they're living on the edge right there.
that's it.
Well, the reason I ask you that is because a friend of mine is a producer in Warsaw, but he's from Vancouver Island. And he said that he notices that because of the power in Warsaw, the European power, that he doesn't get any hums, he doesn't get the ground loops, all the problems we have with 110 over here. He says he doesn't experience over there at all.
Yeah, I believe it. I was listening to on my second album, which is the album I was making when I met Marie. On my second album, I had a ballad I had written when my first love, my high school girlfriend, busted up with me. I had written this ballad, and the producer said, "We need one more song." And I said, "Well, I got this ballad, you know." And he said, "Well, I don't really like it, but we'll put it on there." And it became a massive, gigantic radio hit over here, MTV and radio. I still have charts from 1990 when it came out where it's me, and then it's Madonna and Bon Jovi and Bryan Adams. So I'm a one-hit wonder, but I did it once. Even if I died tomorrow, I had a hit. And
Wow.
it's kind of a standard song over here. If you go into a bar and they're playing classic rock songs, there's a good chance the band is going to play this song, and it's called The Love That We Once Knew. And I listened to the record the other day. I was driving and I'm like, God, I wonder how that sounds after 31 years. And I have to say the guitar sounded beautiful. And it was a record I did in Copenhagen with a Mesa Boogie amp, the same amp that we still use.
And you're still using that Strat, or do you use different guitars?
I use Strats. I'm a Strat guy, but that old Strat of mine is basically put away. I don't want to take it on the road. I'll tell you, it got so stressful. The last couple tours I did with it, you've been on the road. Here's a scenario. You have a night off. You're going to be in a hotel. The band all says, "Hey, let's go to the movies. There's a good movie playing." We all go to the movies. I take the guitar with me to the movies. We're in the van. We stop on the motorway for lunch to go into, a Denny's or a Tim Hortons. Okay, I'll be Canadian here. We're going to go into Tim Hortons.
Yeah.
I can't leave the guitar in the van, so I take it to lunch with me, and it sits in the. It was so much stress, and I just said, I have to leave this thing at home. I mean, if somebody stole that, it'd be like taking one of my kids, you know?
Yeah.
And so it's at home, it's locked up, and I have a Strat, a couple of Strats that I love. You know?
And so obviously those Strats that you use now compare and sound to that one, but the other one just has has your blood and guts in it. That's why it's important to you.
It has my spirit in it. Yeah. And sometime if you want to hear something, one night I was sitting at home at about 3 a.m. and that Strat I'd been playing it, and it was sitting on the couch, and I looked at it and I thought, that Strat has been with me through heroin addiction, divorce, homelessness. It's been with me through alcoholism, and it's been with me through all this stuff. And it's really, in some ways, my lifelong best friend. And I wrote it a love song, and it's on YouTube. It's called Song for My Guitar. And it's a love song to your instrument. And, you know, when we're done, give it a listen.
Oh, well, we'll put a link up in this so people can hear it. But that sounds amazing. But now we're going to get into some touchy stuff, because I want to talk about your addiction and what happened with you physically and with your health and stuff. And you told me when I talked to you a couple months back that you don't mind talking about that stuff.
Oh, I don't mind at all, man. I have no problem talking about it. If somebody can get something out of it and maybe learn from my mistakes, and then I feel like I've done something well, you know. I mean, I was the guy who was a drug counselor first, dealing with heroin addicts, and then I moved to California and became one, right? So I kind of did it backwards. But even after I got off of that in 77, you know, like I went to the methadone clinic every day with Jesse and drank the orange juice and had him decrease the dosage. He kept doing heroin. I stopped. And, but I still had cocaine and alcohol, right? And I did that until the Carlos thing. But I was really healthy and in good shape for many years. But then my health started getting really weird. I started getting intense equilibrium problems on stage, and I would get, my whole body would start cramping up like a Charlie horse.
May I interrupt for just a sec? So now this happened. You'd already quit drinking. You had already quit drinking when all this started coming on.
When the disease came on, the disease came on in 2013.
And you had been sober since, gosh,
87.
Yeah. Okay, so go ahead.
So I was getting all these symptoms, and I just chalked it up to, well, I guess I hammered myself in my youth and I'm getting old or whatever. And I found out I had a disease called hepatitis C, which I didn't know I had, which is a liver thing, right? It destroys your liver.
Yeah, I'm very well aware of it.
I tried doing everything. I ate vegan and did all these health regimens, but it got worse and worse. And it got to, I mean, I sent you a couple photos. There's one photo in there that's a profile of me shaking hands with a young muscular guy who's a British guitar player. And that photo was taken on the last tour I did before I was hospitalized. And you can see I'm 60 kilos. There it is. I weigh 220 now. I weigh about 110 in that photo. Wow. And it was right after that I was put in the hospital for 8 months. And, you know, I'm pretty close to almost death right there. And so it turned out, they said, you know, your only hope for survival is if you can get a transplant. And I started off in a hospital in Orange County, California, and they transferred me to UCLA. UCLA is supposed to be the liver transplant mecca of the world, you know. Mm-hmm. And I was there for a couple of months in ICU, but they basically said to my wife, he's going to die and there's nothing we can do for him. At the most, he's got a couple of months left to live, and that's it. And we're sorry, there's nothing we can do. Now, there is a great blues man named Curtis Salgado. I don't know if you're familiar with Curtis.
No, I'm sorry, I'm not.
He's been the B.B. King Entertainer of the Year a couple of times. Curtis Salgado, he's one of the greats. He had a liver transplant in Omaha, Nebraska. He called up my wife. Well, first Tony Bronigal, the great drummer, called up Curtis and said, have you heard about Walter? You know, Curtis called my wife and said, look, I know this miracle worker doctor in Omaha, Nebraska. Here's his number. Give him a call. It can't hurt. She called him and he said, well, bring him out here. We'll see what we can do for him, you know. And he had saved Curtis when other people had told Curtis he had no chance. So they basically, one day at 6 a.m., my wife and another friend showed up at UCLA, and they said, we're leaving. And they carried me out, and they carried me onto an airplane and flew me to Nebraska, and I was put in the hospital there. And I was there in that bed for 8 months. I lost over half of my body weight. I had brain damage. I couldn't speak. I got to where I didn't recognize my wife or my children. And with maybe just a couple of days left, they found a liver for me, and they gave me a transplant, and they saved my life. This miracle with the doctor.
Unbelievable. So from the time, so in 2013 was when you first started to notice equilibrium problems. And how
I had actually been having those symptoms for a few years, but they really got bad. In 2013, that's when I lost all that weight. And that's where it, I was so sick. I did not expect to live. I really didn't. I never expected, even if I came through it and if by some miracle I should live, I never expected I'd play music again. I didn't want to hear music. I could not stand to hear music. It hurt too much to hear it. I didn't want to know about it. And, a friend of mine sent me this iPod, the most expensive iPod, and he had put 6,000 songs on it. And he sent me a beautiful pair of headphones in the hospital and said, and I didn't listen to music. I didn't want to know about it. It was too painful.
It's like watching your girlfriend with her new boyfriend.
Yeah. And it was like, I know I have to get this out of my head. I can't do this anymore. And all I can think about really is staying alive for the next 10 minutes, and, but I got out of the hospital, and I had to get therapy, relearn how to walk. I hadn't used my legs in 8 months. I was in a wheelchair at first, and then crutches, and then a cane. And I got physical therapy every day for 3 hours. I got speech therapy just to learn about how to talk again. And, it took me about a year. And also when I got home, then I said, well, I'll see if I can play. And I couldn't play the guitar anymore. It was gone from here and gone from here. And my wife, again, she said, well, you have to start over again, dude. What else are you going to do? So I sat down and I retaught myself from scratch. I started over the same way I did when I was 10 years old.
Unbelievable. So what year did you get your transplant? I'm sorry.
I got my transplant on May the 26th, 2014.
So in 1 year, you had deteriorated that fast.
Yeah.
Basically a little over a year where you lost all that weight and down. Just Charles, that little card that he talked about earlier when he was younger and he was the drug counselor, it's in those pictures. Can you bring it up for me?
Absolutely.
It says Thomas Jefferson University. There it is. There's my work card.
Unbelievable, eh? Wow. Incredible. And to think, so you're how old? 21, you said that?
I was 21, 22, right in there, yeah.
And then not too many years later, look what happened. Insanity. But boy, you were already a great guitar player by that time.
Well, I was playing good. I mean, when I was in that club band playing the Jersey Shore, I was kind of, that band kind of had a rep that they had the hot guitar player, right? And
right.
But it didn't kind of go the way I thought it was going to go for me, but I started relearning. I started teaching myself, and I would sit there 6-7 hours a day and practice and relearn how to bend strings and how to play bar chords and how to do all this stuff. And I got home September 1st. And the first time I tried to play, I played a song on New Year's Eve with my kids. I played one song and I got through it. And then I made my return to the stage on June the 15th, 2015. So a year and a month later, I tried a gig, and instead of playing at the local bar like most guys would do, I went and played at Royal Albert Hall in London. No pressure, you know.
So, okay, you got to tell me, how did that gig come about?
That gig, it was called the Lead Belly Festival, and it was with Kenny Wayne Shepherd and Eric Burden and Buddy Guy and a bunch of people. And they had called my wife and said, you know, how's Walter doing? Would he think about coming and playing? And she came to me and said, Walter, this could be your return to the stage. And I was like, yeah, okay. And I was only supposed to play for like 20 minutes, and I was going to play with a British backing band. Everybody had a backing band, kind of like the gig I did at Massey Hall, the Jeff Healey tribute, where it was a bunch of Canadian musicians who backed up Randy and backed up me and Sonny Landreth and Albert Lee and Philip Sace. But so that was June the 15th. And that was I was really apprehensive. And I didn't know what was going to happen. I didn't know when I walk out there, am I going to fall over? Because when I had the equilibrium problems, I was literally falling over, right? I'd get dizzy and over I'd go. And when I open my mouth to sing, is anything going to happen? What's going to happen when I try to play? And it was a sold out show, and my wife introduced me. They brought her on, and she introduced me, and I came out and I counted to 4, and that band came in behind me, and I had this cathartic revelation. I've done this 10,000 times, and I'm at home, and this is where I live. And I had the time of my life.
Wow.
And it's on YouTube. If you look up, it's called Marie Trout, R-A-H. And it's her introducing me, and it's me doing, 2 songs with those guys. But it was, Jules Holland was there, and Paul Jones, and a bunch of people from the BBC, and Eric Burden was standing in the wings, and I came walking over, and I came walking off the stage, and everybody was crying. Eric Burden's like sobbing, and it was a really emotional evening.
I bet. So when did you form a band again after that?
Well, my band had been waiting for me. They had said, look, when you're ready to come back, you let us know, and we're here for you.
Is that the same guys you have now?
Same guys, except for the bass player. Yeah.
Wow. Well, you got to love a drummer whose last name is Leisure, anyway.
Yeah, and I gotta say, Michael Leisure is an incredible drummer. And when I was in the hospital in UCLA, he's one of the people that came to visit, and that meant a lot to me. Sometimes when you're down and out like that, you see who your friends are, Yeah. And it was, he's a great guy and a great player. And so he waited. Everybody said, when you're ready, come on back. And that's what we're doing now. We haven't done a gig since March 11th, but they're waiting. And they're like, Walter, when we can get back to it, let's do it,
So where do you think you're gonna play when this all opens up? Where do you think you're gonna play? Where would you like to play?
Well, I don't know. I've had gigs booked that my wife has had to move already 3 times.
Yeah.
We were on Zoom today with our agent, and we were supposed to do a tour with John Mayall, double billed with Mr. Mayall, and that's been moved 3 times. Right now it's scheduled for next December. So we'll see,
Yeah.
But
I know the feeling. I've had many gigs moved and then moved again and then moved again.
Yeah. Nobody, you can't be certain of anything right now. But when the music came back, when I got back from the hospital, I was traumatized, and I was sitting learning the guitar, and my wife basically said to me one day, Walter, you've been through a lot of trauma and you're really difficult to be around. You have a lot of stuff you need to work out. She said, you need to do one of two things. You either need to go see a shrink or you need to write some songs. Either way. She gave me that idea. And in 2 days, I wrote 18 songs about what happened to me.
Oh my God.
And that became my album, Battle Scars, which is the whole album is the story of what I went through. It starts off with a song called Almost Gone, which means I'm just about dead. It takes you through the whole thing. It's about having IVs in your arms and the whole thing. And then the last song is called Gonna Live Again, which means it looks like I'm gonna survive. And that won at the Blues Awards in Memphis that year. It won Album of the Year.
Wow. Unbelievable. What happened? Here's the weird thing. Like you had a book out in 2014.
Yes.
But that's right in the middle of all this stuff that's going on.
Well, a journalist in England wrote a biography of me, and also a film company in Holland did a documentary on my life, and they were all supposed to come out for the 25th anniversary of my band, which was going to be in 2014. That was going to be the 25th anniversary of my band. And the Pro Vogue was going to call it the Year of the Trout. And they released my whole back catalog on special vinyl collector's items. And they did all this. And I had a gigantic tour booked around it. And it all got canceled because I was in a hospital. But the book did come out. It's a biography of me. And also the documentary came out. It's got film clips in there of me playing with John Lee Hooker and with Big Mama Thornton and with Canned Heat and with Mayall, and it's
well, I'd love to see that. So the book came out. So it's your life up until your operation, essentially. It was up until you got sick, I guess.
And the book ends with, we don't know if this guy's going to survive. And to be honest, I was in Omaha laying in the hospital, half dead, and my wife walks in and goes, "Hey, look, here's your book. Here's your biography."
Wow, unbelievable. So all these. Okay, I gotta go over this. So you've got. Hold on, I'm gonna bring this up. So Gonna Live Again, the Song of the Year in 2016. 2015. Rock Blues Album of the Year, Battle Scars in 2016 or 15?
15.
Once again, 15. So these dates are wrong. And we're all in this together?
Rock Blues Album of the Year for, what was that, 2018, I think?
Okay, this one they got right, 2018. Overseas Artist of the Year from 2013 to 2015?
Oh, of the British Blues Awards?
That's the Overseas Artist of the Year. Yeah.
That's the British Blues Awards. And I've won that 3 times and they've taken me out of the running because I won it so many times. They just decided that they're going to take me out of the running.
Wow. Unbelievable. So, and then the multiple, you had Blues Blast Awards. So once again, that's 16, 17, 18 again.
Yeah, Male Artist of the Year and all sorts of.
So talk about somebody that came back from the brink. Holy smokes, Walter!
I won the European Guitar Award in 2018. Along the other people who won that over the years have been Steve Vai, Jimmy Page, Steve Lukather, Joe Bonamassa. I can't remember them all. Anyway, I won that one year, and they did a big evening in a club in Amsterdam where they presented me the award, and all these people played, and they showed a film of my life and all this stuff. It was cool, man. It's cool to come back from the brink and get a little recognition here for 50 years of playing that shit.
Yeah, I hear you. So that biography you're talking about, that movie, is it online? How do you find something like that?
The biography is a DVD, which is in a box set called The Blues Came Callin'. It used to be on YouTube. It's a DVD. It used to be on YouTube. I think they took it down. I could see if I could get somebody I know to put it back up on there.
Yeah, well, we'll see if we can find it and stick it up in the credits at the bottom of this in our description. There's going to be so many.
What's difficult about that is the film crew from Holland comes to my house, and along with the old film clips of, me with John Lee Hooker and all that, they interview me, and it's right before I was hospitalized, and I can barely talk. My voice sounds like this, and I weigh 100 pounds, and I'm trying to talk, and I'm like, oh. It's really painful for me to watch.
I bet it is.
Yeah.
So, getting back to Jeff Healey, so did you work with him ever?
Yes, I met Jeff when he was still a local Canadian guy, and I came up with John Mayall to tour Canada, and Jeff was a teenager, and he was our opening act. Wow. And we became friends, and 2 years later, we were his opening act.
Yeah. I played with him at Massey Hall. What a monster. Every time he sold, people would stand on their heads. It was like a standing ovation for every solo he did.
He was unbelievable, and what an incredible gentleman. My album, I did 2 albums where I had guests, and one is called Full Circle, and I invited him to play on it. And I called him up, and he said, "I'd love to play on it, but I can't get to LA. Why don't you come to Toronto?" And I flew up to Toronto actually on my birthday, and I recorded a song with him with his band, with Alec Fraser on the bass, and he had a band at the time that he was working with at his club. He still had the club, and I wrote a song to do with him, and I recorded it in a little studio in Toronto, and we basically did it live. We went back and overdubbed the vocals because I had to help him with the lyrics. He couldn't, be reading the lyrics, so his verses I would tell him, and then he'd record the verse, But the guitars and the music, we did it live. We just did it once. It's called Working Overtime, and you can hear that one too. That's Jeff and I. So I got to record with him, which was just awesome.
Yeah, what a monster player. And like you say, one of the nicest people you ever meet. Actually, it was weird. We seemed to hit it off at one point, because I remember I was always the guy that would bring him out on stage. So I was his arm, right? So yeah, so that's always a pretty special thing, right? So I felt good about that.
His sense of humor. One time when I was still with Mayall, we were in, I think it was London Heathrow, and we were on one of those moving sidewalks that, like an escalator that goes through the terminal.
Yeah, the
and
Jetsons.
We were going in one direction, and here he comes with his band going the other direction.
Right.
And I yelled, "Hey, Jeff!" I said, "It's Walter Trout," and he yelled back, "Hey, Walter, you're looking good." And then when I went to record with him, he comes in the studio, and I go, "Hey, Jeff," and he says, "Walter, you've lost weight."
What blew my mind, I remember one time there used to be a talk show on TV here up in Canada called the Mike Bullard Show. And one day this jazz band goes on. And I see this jazz band. I'm sort of watching them, and I went, "Is that Jeff Healey? He was playing flugelhorn." Yeah. It's like, I had no idea.
Yeah. Well, he had actually given up playing blues rock guitar for a while because he'd had a very unfortunate experience with management from his old band. You know, he'd had some problems.
Oh, I know those guys.
You know, and you know the story. And
it happened in my current hometown. I met those guys. Yeah, I'm not impressed.
Well, it was really just one of them.
Yeah,
that was managing him who really caused the problem. But he got disgusted and said, I'm just going to play with my jazz band and play trumpet. And it was actually, I believe, Thomas Roof from Roof Records, the German guy who owns the label, who convinced him to come back and start playing guitar again, you know.
No, well, I'm really glad I got to play with him, because it was like, I don't even think it was 2 years later that he was dead.
Yeah.
It was just like sad. I guess he'd always had trouble with these tumors. I guess he'd been going through them for years, dealing with these tumors, and they removed them, and I guess it finally got him.
Sad thing, man. But what a genius, you know.
Well, so now that what's happened down south, I guess you can come back to the States, you know, and not be afraid.
Well, I want the virus to get.
I mean, aside from the virus.
Yeah, I know what you mean. The thing is, like, after you have a transplant, they put you on immunosuppressant drugs because your body interprets that new organ as an intruder. So they basically turn off your immune system. Right. So I'm very susceptible to infections and colds and all of that stuff, you know. Mm-hmm. And I wouldn't even think of coming back till I get vaccinated. And one of the things is, I'm in a little fishing village here with a population of 600 people, and our house is on the edge of this national park. If you walk out the back door of our house, you are in these gigantic sand dunes that are 30 or 40 feet high, and you cross a half a mile of sand dunes, and there's the North Sea. And it's a little fishing village where these fishermen go out in the morning and they come back in the afternoon and pull their boats up on the beach and sell the fish. It's a little tiny village, and we're very secluded from the virus here. We're very safe, you know. Yeah.
So what's the weather like there right now?
It's cold and rainy.
Same as here today. Well, we were supposed to get snow today, of all things. We never get snow in Victoria, but there was apparently it must be in the upper levels. We didn't get any personally, but
it looks like a beautiful place where you live.
Oh, have you been to Victoria?
Well, I played at the Nanaimo Blues Fest, and when you showed me on a map where you live, you're not that far from Nanaimo, right?
Yeah, it's about an hour and a bit. Yeah, south. Yeah, we're on the southern tip, and Victoria is a very British. Victoria's like a beautiful London, because it's all gardens and double-decker buses, and it's just a lovely place. It really, truly is, and I'm really blessed to be here. But wow, what a great conversation, Walter. Holy smokes! Yeah, man, you touched on a lot of stuff here.
Yeah, I had a great time playing music with you, and you're singing when at the end, if you remember, at that gig we did in Toronto with Randy, the encore was this whole medley of classic rock songs.
Yeah.
And when you came out and you started singing some of those songs, man, it just blew my mind. Both you and Mark are these incredible vocalists, you know.
I think we did Whole Lot of Love and some AC/DC.
And you sang American Woman, and you sang, I think You Shook Me All Night Long by AC/DC, right? And
no, Mark sang that one, yeah.
Oh, did he? Okay.
Yeah.
You guys, I was just up there going, oh my God, listen to these guys. You know.
Well, you should come up and we'll play with you.
Oh, that'd be awesome, man.
Here, this is a little something for you.
Look at those guys.
So, yeah.
Sure. We got the right one?
Yeah, I think so.
I see that bass player.
That looks
okay. Here we go. You hear it?
Yeah.
Can you hear it?
Yeah, it's fine. That's cool.
You have a high voice, man. You're going, I don't want to, you're all the way up to a B because the song's in E. So you're up on the B and you're singing full voice.
Yeah, well, Mark and I try to compete with high notes, I think.
Now, if you could look up Marie, Marie, Marie Trout, and then RAH, and just see her introduction to my return to the stage. It's only about 30 seconds, but it's an emotional moment.
Walter spent many of the past 18 months in hospitals, too weak to walk and too tired to talk. In May of last year, in the 11th hour, a perfect liver donor match and an outpouring of love and support from the blues community saved his life. Since he has fought like a warrior and trained like an athlete to prepare for this moment. Ladies and gentlemen, please give him a warm welcome back to the stage where he belongs, Walter Trout.
As this is playing, Walter, tell us what that felt like coming back on stage again.
Well, as I said, I was very apprehensive, but as you can see right there, I ended up getting a standing ovation just for walking out on the stage, and I knew they were with me, you know. I could feel that they were with me, and I didn't need to be nervous or worried. And then I counted to 4, and in came the band, and I felt great. It was, you could see, I walked out on that stage, and she and I fell into each other's arms and started weeping, and I really had to pull myself together. It was really, really emotional.
Yeah, well, when this is shown, when this video is shown, I'm going to be superimposing that properly over top, so you'll be able to see and hear all that stuff much more clearly. Yeah, so that's fantastic. Wow, what a story, Walter. What a story. Good Lord.
Well, you've had quite the journey.
Yeah, no kidding.
Okay.
Look, hopefully it keeps going. You know, I'm down to 3 fingers, and I'm really taking care of my hands now, man.
Yeah.
Walter,
you got to listen to your mother.
Yes, exactly. That's exactly right.
You listen to what your mother tells you, Walter.
Yeah, I know.
Yeah. Unbelievable. Thank you so much. This has been unbelievable.
Oh, this has been great, man. Thank you for inviting me to come on your show. I appreciate it very much. And I had a great time playing music with you. And I think you're an amazing musician. And you and I also are a couple of the lucky people in the world, in that we both have these great wives, you know.
Well, you're looking at 2 other people here that do as well, and our producer John, who's unfortunately not with us today. We were all blessed. Every one of us are very lucky. Actually, Charles just got engaged.
Oh, well, Congratulations, Charles. That's awesome, man.
Thank you so much, Walter. I appreciate that.
Beautiful.
Oh, Walter, thank you so much for being with us today. I mean, the show's been raw, sincere, honest, and, you know, for our audience who really can embrace the blues, I mean, you really have lived the life.
That's great. Thanks for having me, guys.
Okay,
Thanks,
take care, buddy.
Walter.
Cheers.
Be safe over there.
Okay, bye-bye.
Bye.
Cheers.
Bye.
Hey, thanks for joining us. Check out our other vignettes and full episodes from a wide variety of guests for more great content. Please like, share, and subscribe, and become a member at SocialNRGPresents.com to access premium content and earn valuable energy points just for watching.